I want to thank you for coming this afternoon and participating in this video that's part of our 175th anniversary. And I know you've been watching the videos each month, and we thought that it would be nice to include in our videos some of you ladies that have been part of the church for so many years and done so many special things. So Dennis said that he would be happy to video you, and so he's going to take your picture as you speak, and then he's also going to be recording your messages. So when I hand you the microphone, and Catherine has offered to go first, which I think is very noble, I want you to tell us your name, when you came to this church, whether you were born here or whether you moved in later. If you came later, what brought you to Montgomery? What was the special thing that brought you to Montgomery? And then share with us what you've been involved in, whether it's the choir or the women's group or Bible study or whatever. And then a special memory, maybe a special occasion or something that was really very meaningful to you that you can share. And remember, this will be looked at, we hope, in years to come. And they will see these special people that were so much a part of this special congregation. And so we've had our ups and downs, but we've really been blessed over the years. And I just want to thank you so much for coming out and doing this today. I know this is not your favorite thing to do, but think of this as like a coffee time without the coffee, and we just want to chat back and forth. And if somebody sparks a memory to you and you want to interject that, it's just like a conversation that we would be having on the back porch. So Kate's going to start us out, and then we'll go from there.
Am I ready to start? I give my name. I am Catherine Moorfield, better known as Kate. I have been coming to Montgomery, which is a wonderful place to worship, for 79 years. Oh, that's right, 79 years. I've been a member, an active member of Montgomery Church. And I do have lovely memories, and as they have said, we've had our ups and our downs, but mostly up. Some of the things that I miss, we used to have a Children's Day Sunday every year, just like Mother's Day and Father's Day, where all the little children would have speeches to say or poems to read, and that was their Sunday, and I do miss having that. Something else I've always been impressed by, that everything that was done in years past was done free. We didn't have to pay to have the lawn mowed down at the old church. If it was an electric problem, one of the men was an electrician. He would fix it with no cost. We paid for nothing. Everything was done volunteer. We even had 3 ladies that every week would walk to the Montgomery Church with their broom, their dust cloths, their furniture polish, and clean the inside of the church to make it beautiful. As to me, there is no church as beautiful as the old Montgomery Church. And as I said, in the Women's Society, sometime we wouldn't agree on what we were going to do, who was going to be chairman of the dinner, who could help, who couldn't help. It was just a wonderful, friendly time, and we enjoyed being together. We've had many a laugh. Gloria can tell you some of the things about that, I think. And it's just, as I said at the beginning, Montgomery is a wonderful, wonderful church, a wonderful, wonderful place to worship. And if you're in need of anything, if you're sick, everything, all food is brought into you. It's great. Now, does anybody else have anything they'd like to add?
I'm Sandy Day. I've been here only about half the time that Kate's been here. I came, I think, in the early 80s, and this lady was the reason. We were involved in our sorority alumni work at that time, and we have lots of songs, and of course she was always leading the singing. And because she's alto, I generally sang alto and sang the harmony with her, but she decided I needed to be a soprano and she needed me in the church choir. And I really wasn't attending my home church then. I had married and come to Mount Airy and never gotten back into going to church on a regular basis, so I came to Montgomery when we were in the fellowship hall. And I think the first time I came here, it was to sing in the choir, and I had a broken leg from outdoor ed at school. And climbed up those stairs on that stage in the fellowship hall. So I would say one of the outstanding events, well, everybody, this was a very friendly place, number one. It was not hard to adapt to coming here. That's always been a marker for this church to me. But one of the outstanding events after that, I think, was when we built the sanctuary that we're sitting in, and we made that procession from the fellowship hall down the hall and into the sanctuary that first day. So that was pretty important. And I've always enjoyed worshiping in this room. I really, some of the things I've done, Well, I didn't say where I came from. I grew up near Sunshine, so my home church is Mount Carmel United Methodist. And I joined there because before we became United Methodists. So all my family's from there. I found today, digging into things, several different hymnals, all the way back to one that's from the Methodist Protestant Church. You will be interested in that, Joyce. And family Bibles I hadn't been into for years, and found a listing of all the members of my grandmother's family, which was interesting to me. I might be related to Donna after all, legitimately. So, but I really, the things I've been involved in, but I've always been involved in the choir. I always said if I did nothing else, I would sing in the choir if my voice allowed it. But I've gotten involved in, over time, the fair booth when we were doing that for a fundraiser in the summertime. Of course, I grew up around the fair at Gaithersburg, too. And I found, and I still had, one of the T-shirts I guess we designed at that time, about that time, because we figured, oh, good, we can all wear them in the food booth at the fair. So that was just one. There were lots more sent after that. There was purple and lime, and I don't know where they are. I don't know if I got them. Oh, lo and behold, I was asked to be on SPRC. Oh, that was an experience and a half. And of course, wouldn't you know, that was when Mark Derby decided or got assigned to a different church. And he'd been here 14 years. Well, then we had to plan what to do for him. And then we had to get a new pastor in here. And then we had to deal with all that. It was a tough transition time. But it was a good group. I really still enjoyed that team of people that was together at that time. We, what else did I get involved in? Oh, trustees, Donna and I. Oh, Lord, how could I forget that? We just came off of that. Oh, that was another one. So, of course, you know, by that time they had renovated the kitchen and they still hadn't gotten it organized, and they wanted us on trustees because they figured we could organize the kitchen. Well, we did, sort of. Now it's somebody else's turn. Oh, and Heritage Circle, I love Heritage Circle, which I got into mainly because Helen Mihalis invited my mother to come to Heritage Circle. So that's how I got it with you gals. And that's a lot of fun. I enjoy that. So that's it. That's my story. as I still feel like in many ways I'm a relative newcomer.
Okay, I'm Nancy Sprague, and I've been coming here for 47 years. But I was raised in a Methodist church, the little one in Ridgeville United Methodist Church. I was raised there and loved it. But when we came to getting married, my husband was Episcopalian, so we got married at the Episcopal Church in Mount Airy. And we lived in the apartment in Damascus, and so we started going to St. Anne's. Well, it was okay, but it wasn't like the Methodist church that I was used to and grew up with. And by the time our first son, we had 3 children by then, Johnny was 12, the oldest, and they were okay with coming to church, but something seemed like it was missing. And I thought about Montgomery Church and coming back to the Methodist, and so I said something to my husband, and he said, okay, let's go to Montgomery. So it was in the summer, and I can remember because there was no Sunday school in the summertime then at St. Anne's. So we came, and it was so hot that they had the Sunday school out on the Grove at the old Montgomery Church. And but the kids just loved it. They knew a lot of the kids in the first place, especially Frida and Leonard Moxley's 3, Kevin, Chris, and Kelly, and we are slightly related to them anyway. But they knew a lot of the other ones, and boy, it only took 2 weeks. Boy, then they were invited in the fall to go to MYF, that's what it was called then, not just the youth group. It was, and oh my goodness, they loved it. And so, boy, I felt like, boy, I am home. So we did join. I think it may be 6 months later because we had pledged money to St. Anne, so we just waited till the end of the year, and I think then we joined. But Johnny and Jimmy still talk about going. Cindy and Andy Johnson were the leaders, and they just loved them to death. and especially the summer, they took them down to his mother's. He had a beach house or something down, and they still talk about it. So that's how we got involved. And Reverend Braden was the minister then, and Julie was a Sunday school teacher. And as soon as I got here, I was asked to help Julie in the Sunday school class. So I started teaching with her, and then after they left, I still taught for several years. And I don't know, and I do remember and working at the fair, yes, and I do miss that they haven't done that. And what gets me is we have this big kitchen, and the church dinners was really nice, but you can't get the help. The older ones must have been the hardest workers because we can't get the younger ones in, I guess, to get interested. But that would be interesting to have a church dinner once in a while. I kind of miss that. And then, and also like you, I got coming to the Heritage Circle because of my mother-in-law, and she just loved it. That made her, when she started living with us the last year of her life, and even before then, she was coming to the Heritage Circle, and that was one of her favorite things to do. She just loved it. So I thought, okay, then I got interested in it. So after she passed away, I'm still coming, and I enjoy it too. Okay, that's all I can remember.
Hi, I'm Lynn Harris, and I grew up in a Methodist church, one of the biggest and probably the biggest in Atlanta, Georgia, and was very active in that, and continued being affiliated with Methodist churches wherever I was, in college in New Orleans and coming to Washington, D.C. and living in various areas. And when my husband and I married, and shortly, 2 years after that, we were expecting our first child, he said, I found this wonderful area to move to, and it's it's a lot like where he grew up, which was maybe 40 miles out from the biggest, from a large town. And that's approximately what we are here. But the big attraction of Frederick County was it had this wonderful trout stream. Well, what better reason to move out here, you know? And so we did, and at first we were attending Providence Methodist, and it was a lovely church and everything, but I was so used to those big churches I'd been affiliated with. And then over Broccoli in the Safeway, I happened to be in conversation with a lady, and somehow or another it evolved to churches, and she talked about this church. And so Broccoli led me here. And it's been a wonderful association since 1973. So my children grew up in this church, and I like to say that we grew up in this church as well, because certainly the faith journey has been wonderful and the friendships made here as well. Some of the memories that stand out the most to me are when a Sunday school teacher my daughter had related a happening in Sunday school, and she was trying to make the point, she was leading up to a point about, God is our friend and everything. And she said, now, when you're very, very lonely, and at that point, our daughter Laura said, but we're not ever alone. God is always with us. And I thought, how wonderful that she's coming to a church that has, at age 7, she is so confident of that fact. That was a powerful moment. Another one relating to children and how they grow up in a church. Mark Derby was telling me that our son, when he was in preparation for membership class with Mark, Mark said he had never had anyone in one of his classes who asked so many questions. And I said, oh yes, that's what we do. We answer a lot of questions in our family, and we also get to debate a lot in our family. And he said, but it's wonderful because he is so strong in his faith, and both kids are today and are attending Methodist churches. That's kind of nice, even though they're many, many miles away from here. Some of the specific things that were so significant to me were way back in the day before perhaps Montgomery County had made so many rules. There were Christmas candlelight services where the whole family could come. They were earlier, and my children felt just like I did from the time I was a young child, and holding that candle on Christmas Eve was such a huge responsibility too, not to set anyone on fire, but it was also highly meaningful to all of us, and that was one of the things that attracted us to the church in our first years, which of course were over at the church on the Point, and then after that, and happily going through the building of this church and coming here. Some of the other activities that inspired me, when Sandy was talking about the music, it made me remember I had always been in choirs at all these various churches or choruses for the children. And when we came here, it was one of the first times I had ever seen where they simply invited all the members of the audience who were familiar with or wanted to sing along with the Hallelujah Chorus to come up on the stage. That was when we just had the old part, the social hall part of it. And we all, so many of us went up and performed as a sort of impromptu choir, and I love that. Another thing Did you want to say something,
That was
Sandy?
on Easter. I remember that, and I had
Yes.
just thought of that, and I should have said that, and you had to. So it went right straight over that brainwave. Anyway, it was always on Easter. It was a tradition, and of course, you had a full congregation. We had
Oh, yes.
hundreds of people
It was just
in
marvelous.
the main service, and yeah, that was pretty cool, pretty special,
Yeah.
very special. Music's always been special, I think, in this church. Mm-hmm. It just really, and I have to chime in while we're on that. Don Ising playing this organ was
Yes.
just outstanding. I'll never forget. A lot of times at the end of the service, all of a sudden you'd hear "Hail to the Redskins" in the middle of the postlude.
I also have to say one of the other powerful things to me when we first started coming was the inclusion of children in some part of the service. That was very significant. Also, the working together with other people, having the huge bazaars we had, and I know Debbie contributed so much when we were having the drive-throughs and the walk-throughs for Easter with our costumes and everything. The camaraderie from doing that. John and I were the people, the owners of the inn at Christmas. And so we were standing out in front of the church, and as each car drove up, I was to approach the people and speak to them about whether they had reservations or not, etc. And at that moment, John was supposed to open the door, the front door to the church, and then a lot of the youth said, "There's no room here, no room." And so that was supposed to be how it worked until John, without gloves on, reached back and grabbed the icy cold metal door handle, and it froze to his hand. And he kept smiling and saying, anyway, it was just, there were so many experiences like that. I go on too much, though. So I'll say that what have I been involved in? Telecare, when it was telephone care, the care team, as it is now, bringing food for many different occasions over the years. And I chair the greeters at this time for both services, and am church council secretary. And just in... Pardon? Oh, and yes, most recently, Heritage Circle chair. I can never fill the shoes of Kate Warfield, but I keep trying.
I'm Elaine Cordell. I've been coming to this church for 79 years. I grew up here. I had a wonderful childhood in this church. Over in the old hall, waiting on tables, and having Halloween parties in the basement, and having to peel grapes, and it was supposed to be the eyes, and we were all just thrilled. We had hay rides. We did all kinds of things. It was the best part of my life. I got married here. I was baptized by Reverend Galley, who was one of our really, really older ministers. I got married here. I taught Sunday school here. I enjoy Heritage Circle. My mother came, so I came after she did. And I'm just glad I grew up when I did, and I liked being involved with Kemptown Church. We used to have Bible school with Kemptown Church. We got to know all the kids. We used to play ball with them. So that's kind of like our second church. I enjoy the Heritage Circle very much. And I just can't imagine ever going to any other church.
Hi, I'm Linda Thompson. I've been at this church almost 27 years. I'm not from the area. I'm from Pennsylvania, like a lot of other people around here. Anyway, we've been, like I said, we've been here about 27 years, and I think what brought me here was the music. We visited a couple times, and we fell in love with it and loved the music program. In fact, in past churches I've been at, I've been the children's choir director, so I thought, oh, coming here, I'm going to have a couple years off. I won't be doing any children's choirs. Well, lo and behold, about the first Sunday I walk in, my partner in crime, Joyce Rhodes, she approached me. I didn't know her from Adam at the time. She said, "Hi, you're Linda Thompson, aren't you? How would you like to do cherub choir with me?" So that's what we did for years. We did that together. And in case you know what cherub choir is, it was for children ages 3 through 5. And then when they were at that time, we had the cherub choir, we had the junior choir, which was, I guess that was 1st through 5th grade. Then the middle school choir, we had a high school choir. I wasn't involved with those, but each level the children had a music group to be involved in. So that's what really interested me in seeing how music just followed from level to level here. A lot of my one of the other activities I do here, I've been a Sunday school teacher in 1st grade for about 15 years. It's now kindergarten, 1st grade. I do that every Sunday, and I've been involved in the chancel choir for several years, and not at the moment, but I did in the past, likewise with bell choir. I was involved in that. And I've been with the Heritage Circle since, I think, 2011, when I was so kindly invited by Kate Warfield one Sunday. She said, "You're retired. You're over 55, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah, that's right." She said, "Well, why don't you come to Heritage Circle?" So I said, "Sure." So the rest is history. I guess that was pretty much it. We had basically music and Sunday school are my two biggies here, and then recent years Heritage Circle. Yeah. In the past, I haven't done Bible school for a while yet, but the first several years. Right. I had your kids in Sunday school and in Bible school. That's correct. Okay.
I'm Donna Isaacs. I grew up in this church. I worked the dinners down at the old hall. And of course, the Sunday school dinner, we'd have to get a new dress and a new apron to wear to the dinner and to the picnic that followed. So it was always a very big event. My parents were always active in the church, as well as my brother and sister. I worked on the building committee when this sanctuary was built. And just about everything here was dedicated through memorial funds, most everything. One of the stained glass windows, my dad's memorial money helped go towards that. I've been choir director. I did have a children's choir for a short time. I've been on SBRC, which everybody in the church should have the privilege of serving on. You really get to learn about the makings and what goes on within the church. I've been on church council. I am now with the scholarship committee and sing in the choir and play handbells. A lot of good memories here growing up. A lot of good families. And I guess that's mostly what I'd like to say.
I've been a member of Montgomery Church. My mom and dad and my grandparents also were members, and we worked hard down to the old hall because we had a lot of church dinners. I was too young to help wait tables, so my mom said, "You take the people upstairs." Well, to get upstairs from the basement, everybody had to wait in the basement. There was one set of steps, and then you had to turn and come up the next little step to get them upstairs. I had to get up to the top, and I happened to glance over to my right. There in this kitchen was a sink that we used to wash our dishes with. It had two sides to it. And there stood Sis Senseney, smart little, short little lady, one of the sweetest ladies I ever knew, washing dishes. And of course, me, I had to look around a little bit. I happened to look down at her feet. She had one red shoe on and one green. She still was laughing when we left that day. She had no idea she was dressed like that, but she was a sweet, sweet lady. One thing I also remember is the MYF. I enjoyed MYF as much as anything I ever had here at church. Malloy Moxley, a lot of you remember him. He was a fine, fine gentleman. And he had this little car. Well, after we had our MYF meeting, we had to go get something to eat. That was very important. So we'd crawl in, be 7 or 8 of us getting this one-seated truck. Down to Damascus we would go and get something to eat. But that was fine. But we got ready to come home, we could never fit in there. So we had to make two trips. I guess we overeat. I don't know what it was. But anyway, I enjoyed coming here to church, and it's been a real pleasure to be a part of the church group.
How many years have you been here?
I'm 88. I've been here 88 years.
I know one thing I forgot. Yes, you can add to what you said.
One thing I forgot was the apple butter.
But I want to tell you about Gloria. Malloy had this 2-door coupe. I don't know, it was a Plymouth or something. And like she said, after MYF, now you got to remember, I'm a whole lot younger than she is. But my brother was closer to her age. And after the MYF meeting, they always either had to go to Brown's in Mount Airy, or was it the Pope Man's place in Damascus? And so when my brother went to MYF, if they were going somewhere else, he was supposed to tell my mom and dad where they were going. So I was already upstairs in the bed when they pulled up out front. Dietz went to the door and he said to my dad, we're going to go to, I don't know, it was Damascus or Mount Airy. And Daddy said, well, who's going? And he said, just Butch, Buck, and a couple of us. And about that time, Gloria let out this giggle that you could hear all over Claygetsville. And I thought, you know something? There's more in that car than Butch, Buck, and a couple of us. Is that true?
Kate wants to add something.
Oh, go ahead.
I don't have much to say, really. Yeah. Okay, I guess I'll take my turn. I'm probably the baby of this group as far as attendance here, and I've been coming here about 25 years. So I raised my 3 girls. My husband and I raised our 3 girls here, and we've enjoyed it very much. We came from a church in Gaithersburg that we had a long drive to go to for several years. I went there for 15 years, and after we got married and moved up here, we continued to go there. And then when my oldest was about 3, we decided to shop for a church nearby, and we went to a few churches. But when we came here, Mark Derby was preaching, and he was blowing on his trumpet with all his heart, and it just touched my heart. And you know, we've been coming here ever since. But he was only here for maybe a year after we arrived, and we still, I think everyone who ever heard him still has him in their heart. But we've had a great time here in so many ways, and get emotional very easy. But I feel like so many people here are like family to me. I just love them. All this group of Heritage Circle. I joined Heritage Circle when Barbara Massey and Helen Mihalis were in a group called PSA. Probably many of you were on that at one time, the Prayer Study Action Group. And they were wanting to do a craft, and so asked me to do a craft with them, which I did. And we made light bulbs into little turkeys. And after that, I stayed and then joined the Heritage Circle as well, and enjoyed everything we do in Heritage Circle. Kate's leadership especially, her humor, and her fun that she puts in things, and I'm sure we're going to have a great time with Lynn here also. But I have so many happy memories here. I hardly know where to start. I worked in the Bible school several years. I did the snacks for everyone 1 or 2 years. I led the crafts a few times, and I taught a few of the Bible classes. I was a leader in one of the Bible classes a couple times. And then I worked with Barb Knoll in the props, which is my specialty, props and costumes and decor to make special events pop. And also, Barb and I worked on the drive-through that the church had here for several years, maybe 6 years. We dressed about 100 people in period costumes, and we had stations where people could drive their car around and kind of reenact the Bible scene, a Christmas scene. And that was a great fun thing that we did. And I still do props and costumes for skits and plays and things like that. And one of my joys that I do here is to make a special scene for the children at the preschool where you come in Fellowship Hall at Christmas time. I decorate, it's about a 4-foot wall that I decorate differently each year for them. And that is a joy of mine. And I'm serving on some of the committees now that meet at night and try to solve all the world problems. And let's see, some of my special memories, especially my kids that were came to Bible school and enjoyed that so much. And usually my oldest daughter likes to act, and she was cast in several of the skits, and I heard her sing solos, which, I never would have imagined. And even my youngest one, was active here. So one of my special memories was when I taught with Margaret Olson. We were manning the nursery, or womaning the nursery for Bible school, so that the teachers' little ones would have their children looked after. And so we had little programs that we did with them, and we were clearing the table to get ready for Jesus' birthday. And this one little boy kept saying, when is he going to get here? And looking at all expectation, when is he going to get here? When is he going to get here? We're doing all this stuff, we're sweeping, we're decorating, and then we came down to the sanctuary, and he said, where is he? And so I felt like I had to get a little creative there to answer him, and that was just a real fun memory for me, that little face. And I don't know what else. There's so many things, the dinners, the fellowship. What's that? Oh, and for Christmas, we, Lorien, we is that, what do you call that, retirement home, or? Yes, we do a craft to try to do one each year to give as a little gift to the residents there at that center. And I think we have a lot of fun doing it over a couple of days. And then we hand deliver them, and they've been well received so far. And some have even kept the ones from previous years. So it seems to be meaningful to them and to us too. I think we have some good fellowship during that time.
My name is Constance Chabrant, and I've been coming to this church, I think it was 2009 that I came. Mary Frances Roberts was encouraging me to come to the Methodist Church. And I came here, and this is an unbelievable church. I mean, from the time I came here, I felt like I belonged. People were friendly, and there was communication among the people. You just didn't go in and sit like in a Catholic church, and and then you get up and you leave, and nobody says anything. They just go. And with these smaller churches or groups of people, that they're meeting in schools, or one Mary Noble. Even though we're 30 years apart in age, she became, we started going to church up in Frederick there, and she would bring these teenage boys. She worked for where these boys are put in. I don't know if they're not incarcerated, but they've had problems, and we'd go, and she'd drag about 3 or 4 of these young teenage boys with her, and we had a good time there. But in any event, once I started coming here, I just felt like, I found a home. And everyone was so pleasant, and all the men in this church are unbelievable. Primarily, and especially in a blue-collar area like I grew up in, men were not like the men in here. They will do anything for you. I mean, they're just unbelievable. I don't know what I still wouldn't have my driver's license if it wasn't for several of the men here that was driving me up and down because I had to get a new birth certificate, and don't keep your driver's license up to date. But now they have this new thing where it's, well, so much for that. But I've enjoyed coming in. I've had so much help from the men at driving me places where I had to go, because I don't know anything about Frederick yet. I never go that way. But this church has warmth, so many caring people, because I have no people, because my mother and dad are gone, and I had one brother, and he's gone. And we never had any relatives, because my mother had left home, and I never had grandparents or aunts or uncles. So I've always felt like I was floating along out there with no connection. I have my husband, and of course his people are gone now, but he at least had some people, which helps. His dad was gone all the time because he was on the river. He worked on the river. Anyway, I am very happy to be here, and I've been so well taken care of. People coming to help me, to advise me of things. I've just got I'm overwhelmed trying to run a house. My husband now, he's in bed all the time. He's 85 years old, and he's he can't do what he used to do. I've spent I don't know how many weeks trying to close the pool. We put a pool in many years ago, and I think it was 74. Anyway, and I'm trying to do all these things, and I've had so much help from the people in this church, and Frank. My goodness, he helped me. And Carl, I had a cancer operation, and I had an appointment. This was really crazy, and this was in February. And I had to go back down to Kaiser, and you go in the evening. So I had an appointment for 4:30, and Carl drove me down. And I'm sitting there waiting, and it's on the 6th floor, and it's all dark. And, lights, nobody running around. And finally, about 6 o'clock, I'm still sitting in this room waiting for someone to come and check me out. So I went looking for somebody, and I found a woman that was working way down there. And I said, I had an appointment at 4:30, and it's 6 o'clock. And the place is dark. And here was Carl, faithful Carl, sitting out in the waiting room in the barely light, just low lights, and just unbelievably contented. I mean, he didn't even realize, I think, how long he was there. But there it was, by the time we left there, it was 6:30. And we came for a 4:30 appointment. And never once did he, like typically men will grumble or something. He was the sweetest thing in the world, And Frank, I'm amazed at the men, the way they treat. Have somebody open the door for you. This is blue-collar types are very different. At least back in the 50s. Anyway, I am thankful to be in this church. I've had so much help from people. Mary Frances has come down to try to help me get organized because I'm totally disorganized. I have so much junk and collected over, I've been here, 52 years, and I've got 52 years of stuff. And they're trying to help me get organized. But anyway, and I love the pastor. I just had a chance when I had my cancer operation. He came, and I hadn't talked with him before that. And he called, and he said, could I come? And he wanted to come and pray with me. And it was unbelievable. It was, and he was far off from me. I didn't ever have a chance to talk to him. And I figured, well, he'd be there, 10 or 15 minutes. He stayed there 2 hours. And I had the best time in the world, I couldn't believe it. He's telling me about his childhood, and I'm telling him about mine. And it was wonderful. He's a real warm human being, and I really appreciate him. But I love this church, and the people are incredibly helpful. And many of the ladies have, tried to help me in ways, but I'd have never found this had I not found a church like this church. And I'm sure not every Methodist church is the same. But I've been through so many things, trying to find Christ as a child, trying to find him as a teenager, trying to find him even before, I got married. And I found him big time. And I know his word now. And everything that I do, I can judge on what does the Bible say. And I love you all.
You found us. How many years have you sung in the choir?
Well, I started this. Maybe I'll just end it too. I did forget some things. The other ladies were saying what they were involved in. Well, I was involved in the choir for almost 50 years. I was chairman of many, many dinners. I taught Sunday school. At one time, I was superintendent of the Sunday school down at the old building, old church where he did go to. I've been active in everything that has taken place in this church until I reached the age where I can no longer do it, and I really miss it. And you all are such lovely women that I will be celebrating my 90th birthday, having a party, and when I look around, everybody will be getting an invitation to my birthday party. So, Joyce, do you want to take over now?
And you all be thinking if you have something else that you want to add as we close.
Well, when Connie was talking about the men of the church, and Debbie, you were talking a little bit around this a little bit, you've been involved in it too. One of the highlights of the year for me is the Christmas woodcraft, and we do a potluck dinner. But the men just volunteer to do that. And cutting out all the wood pieces or preparing all of that part of it for all of us. And of course, you've gotten involved somewhere along the line, Debbie, and Cheryl Thomas, and I can't think. Tina Brulin. But that's just a highlight. And this year in particular, it was just amazing how many families had like 3 generations of families all together enjoying that activity. It's just one of the best things that we do. And the men just do it. They just do it. I think they're an outstanding element in this church. I really do. One of the strengths, big strengths. We should tell Donna. Donna should talk about the wagon event and the Damascus Days involvement. She's had a lot to do with that.
Well, Damascus started having Damascus Days, and now the big event for that weekend is a parade on Friday evenings. So the Heritage Circle decided Montgomery needed to have something in that parade. So we were lucky enough to get a wonderful wagon from Butler's Orchard, and Robert drives the tractor, and Robert Meal. And the Heritage Circle contributes to candy. There's just thousands of people in Damascus on that Friday evening, which this year is July 12th. And we made banners to go on our wagon, and we'll have new banners this year that will also include about our anniversary year. So it's just a fun event. It's a wonderful event for families in this church. The children love it. So we hope to have a good turnout again to fill the wagon.
I think, Catherine, you said something about apple butter. We hadn't talked about apple butter. Do you want to talk about that? Sure.
Each year, the church makes, not lately, but we in previous years made apple butter as much as how many gallons would we make? Quite a bit. And sell it for a fundraiser. The men would gather the apples and the wood and start the fire and get things going about 6 o'clock in the morning. And the glorious mother would be one of the first women there to help the men to get things started. She thought that they couldn't do it without her. So she was right there that early in the morning, taking care of everything. And the women would fix breakfast for the men while one man would stir the apple butter. The elephant would come in and have his breakfast. They'd take turns that way. Then after it was finished, it's an all-day project. Women would fill the jars and sold every bit of it and could have sold more. It was a wonderful day of fellowship and good time and a moneymaker project.
That was usually run by what was called the 50-50 Club. We forgot to mention them. Years ago, when the Sunderlands were here, they felt we needed to have a gathering for young couples, married couples. So they called it the 50-50 Club for the men and the women. And every month they would meet in a different home and do an activity, whether it was playing some kind of a game and then often we would go on a bus trip or a mystery trip. And the men in the fall would do a steak dinner down in the hall, and wonderful, wonderful steaks and everything to go with it, but the women had to provide the entertainment. So we would practice and just have the best time, the women getting the entertainment together. At that time, the old TV show Hee Haw was on. So we would do a lot of takeoffs off Hee Haw and just come up with all kinds of crazy acts to entertain everybody after the dinner.
I remember how you just giggled and giggled telling me about some of these acts that you put together.
And Fran Peters mislighted a bulb, and she would have a light that she would turn on and off to the music "You Light Up My Life," and a vacuum cleaner with ping pong balls, and we just had all kinds of talents going on down there. But 50-50 Club was really a great group, and a lot of nice trips, a lot of good memories, a crab feast in the fall, and just did a lot of wonderful things as couples.
How many couples?
Well, we probably had, 50 or so, probably, at least. Yeah, so just had a lot of fun times.
Anybody else have anything else? If you've noticed the videos, we've been doing them in 25-year increments. So the 50-50 Club was mentioned, I think, in one. But there's so much to fit in 25 years. And we've been told that we can only have a 2-minute video in the morning. So just try to squeeze 25 years into 2 minutes. We've been working with Scott Betts from Frederick, who's a videographer for Frederick County. And we give him all this information, and then bless his heart, he puts it together within that 2 minutes. And sometimes we stretch it just a smidgen. But so if your picture's not in there and you've submitted it, it's beyond our control. But things are in the albums, and all of those will be on display on August 18th, that we have our big service that morning at 10 o'clock in the morning, not 9, not 11, but 10 o'clock. And then we'll go from there to the Fellowship Hall, and the Browningsville Band will present the colors outside, and then we'll have a catered lunch, The men, again, though, are going to do the hamburgers and hot dogs. So, Connie, your friend Carl, will be out there cooking the hamburgers. And then there will be games for the kids, and these are going to be games that they played through the years, starting in the 1800s. And then we'll also add some more modern games. And then Debbie Gessling, that was in MYF, that when they used to go to Appalachia Service Project, is coming with some of her homemade ice cream from her sweet shop there in Urbana. And then Linwood Shipley is going to make us some of his famous ice cream that he always puts in the Damascus Community Fair ice cream contest. So we're trying to think of a little bit of everything. But if you all don't mind, when we show all these videos in total that day in the fellowship hall, you folks will be part of that video that day. That will be shown constantly. And then when it's all said and done, we're going to let you buy a video that will have all of the showings on there. And then you can have it and pass it down to your children, I hope.
We talked about the suppers, but we didn't talk about the cookbooks. And I just recently flipped through a couple that I have from Montgomery, and noted some of the recipes. Elaine's in there, Nancy's in there, and Donna's Barbecue. I was thinking Donna's Barbecue was what we used at the fair booth for Sloppy Joe sandwiches. It was really popular. So we should, maybe, you have to get Donna to make barbecue. I couldn't find that thing handwritten the other day, last time I was going to make barbecue, so I made Elaine's, but it's in the cookbook now that I opened the cookbook. But it's really neat. Oh, and I tell you another recipe that's really good, and not too many people make it anymore, is the caramel cake icing. And Claire Johnson. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of neat. But that cookbook is important.
Yeah, I'm glad you thought of that. If we sit here all afternoon, we'll keep on thinking. But it's amazing the fundraisers we had and the money that went back to this church. And when you sit in a pew, I remember when my mother was in Heritage Circle, and how many of you were back in the Heritage Circle then? And they would work so hard, and as soon as they got enough money for one pew, it would go into the building fund so that we would have another pew in the sanctuary. And as Donna alluded to earlier, almost everything in this building, as far as furnishings are concerned, came from people's donations. And they just loved the building project. They had waited so long for a sanctuary, and they were so happy and thankful to get it. But, sure.
There is one other thing that the women used to do to raise money. If there was an auction, a farm auction or something, we would serve the dinner, well, sell sandwiches and things to make money. And we would have to take everything from the old hall to wherever the auction was, even the ice. And that was a lot of work for the ladies to have to take pans and have everything there to serve lunch at the auction. And I always found that, wondered why they did that, but now when I look at this beautiful sanctuary, I know why they did it.
Gloria, did you have anything else you wanted to say? I don't want to leave anybody out. If you think of other memories, I'm going to try to get Dennis, he doesn't know this yet, but I'm going to try to get Dennis to do this again one evening for those folks who couldn't come during the day. And so if you want to be a repeat performance, that'll be great. I'll let you know when that's going to be. But I appreciate so much your coming this afternoon, and let's end with prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this special group of ladies who have given their hearts and souls to the life of this church, because they want to honor you, Lord, and they want to bring glory to your name. And they certainly want to spread the love of Christ and that message to everyone they meet. So thank you, Father, for blessing us over and over and over through the generations, being with us through the rough times, celebrating with us when we have the wonderful, happy times, and always being there, our rock, through our challenges, either in our personal lives or in the church. So we praise you and we thank you. And we just are so, so grateful to know that you've always got your arms around us and you're carrying us through each day. And we praise you and bless you and thank you for your Son. Amen. Oh, here. Okay. Wait a minute, Dennis. Hold on.
There was a lady that was very, very active in our church named Rebecca Watkins. And each year for the picnic, she bought a new apron once a year, and that was especially for the picnic. But she wouldn't tie that bow until she came to the hall and had one of the ladies tie the bob. Now, she had a daughter that could have done it, but she wanted it done perfect. And she didn't think Jean could do that. So she would come in the hall with her apron, holding it very carefully so it wouldn't have a wrinkle, and we'd have to tie this bow for her, and then she'd feel it to make sure that it was the way she wanted it to be. But that was for the picnic, and that meant that much to Miss Becky. You know, you mentioned Sis Sensony. The day that she had on the 2 different color shoes, she also had 2 different height heels. And she had worked that whole supper with 1 high heel and 1 lower heel and did not know it. How on earth she did it, I don't know. She had no idea until somebody looked and said, "Sis, your heels are different height." And she said, "You know, I wondered why I was kind of walking like this."
She didn't realize she
In this book, there's a, when Elaine was a waitress at one of the suppers, she and Diane and Rita and Donna were out on the front porch. But this shows the ladies in the kitchen, and it shows the old hall and the advertisement.
It showed our aprons.
And it showed the aprons, because that was always expected.
Are you speaking into that?
Oh, I'm not speaking now. No, I'm enjoying it.
Oh, you did. Are we still filming?
No, I think it's finished.
Did you cut us or again?
Okay, it's finished. Now you all can just
I think we should have said a little more about our current pastor, John. Wonderful, he brought the church together. I don't Yeah, it's more about history, but our
Yeah.
current history
This
is.
is 1970 to 1995.
Well, but you all cover everything, and that's fine. He's going to kind of end the whole thing. But did you want to speak to that? I mean, Dennis can. Dennis, you got a PM.
How about you, because you suggested it?
Go ahead, Jeff.
I just wanted to add the little addendum here that how much our church has appreciated our pastor, our current pastor, Pastor John Redisell, and he's brought us together in very special ways. And we've had a little rocky road for a few years before him, and we're doing great. Thanks for his leadership.
I want to welcome you here tonight to be a part of the video for our 175th anniversary here at Montgomery Church. And I would hope that you would give us your name and what ministry areas you participate here, perhaps how long you've been here, some good memories that you have, and even maybe some vision for the future of our church. And so we're going to start with the lady in blue.
My name is Sandy Harmon, and I've been with Montgomery Church since 1985. And when I first came here, we were in the fellowship hall. That was our worship center. First day I came here, it was a very snowy day, and I came up the sidewalk because I didn't really know. I didn't know the church. I'd never been here before. And I followed this lady in, and come to find out it was Idell Dornheim. And she took me under her wing, brought me into the fellowship hall, and that's where I started my church family here with her. I sat with her my first day, and again, we were in the fellowship hall. Another special memory in the fellowship hall when we were still worshiping there was I got baptized. Pastor Derby baptized me in the fellowship hall, and my daughter Christine also got baptized in the fellowship hall. So very special memories for us. My ministry here, I do teach an adult Sunday school class. It's a couples class, men and women or singles, and I've been a Stevens minister in this church. And I love this church, and I love the praise band. And another fond memory is when our new sanctuary was ready for us to come in and start being here. I remember Pastor Derby leading us from the fellowship hall down the long Christian education hall and coming into our new sanctuary for the first time after it was finished being built. So those are very special memories here. And of course, I didn't grow up in a church family. So this was my first church family, and I've just stayed here. So thank you. I'm just glad to be here.
Hello, my name is Warren Pfeiffer. My wife, Marianne, and I heard about Montgomery in 1993. The ministry, when Pastor Mark Derby was here, we came here and had a real blessing, approximately 6 weeks of membership training at that time, where we assessed our spiritual gifts. And after that, it seems like we decided, yes, we would move our membership here at Montgomery on August 22nd, 1993. Interesting enough, that's 26 years. So we're kind of newbies here when you think about 175 years. And interesting enough also, we're going to be celebrating on August 18th, our 175. So very close to when Marianne and myself joined Montgomery. The one thing that not only was the ministry and the preaching and the challenge of the sermons from Mark Derby, but the choir that brought me here. And been through a lot of choir directors since, several organists. I just loved the way Don Ising played and could get that Moeller really singing on a Sunday morning, and which got us singing. And so that's been a real ministry and a blessing to both Marianne and myself. And another thing, I always wanted to, I heard about the Habitat for Humanity, and so I volunteered one summer to go up an area just outside of Charlestown, West Virginia. And I didn't want to stay overnight because I'm a homebody type. But every morning I got up 4 o'clock. Marianne fixed me breakfast, and I got on the road. And one thing I did learn during that week, not only to build houses, but to follow the speed limits going through Charlestown. Anyway, since no good deed goes unpunished, the rest of the week was just fine going up every morning, though a wall or two that I put up had to be taken down and put back up because we did things perfectly and measured things perfectly. And finally, I know my wife and I have served on various committees, from finance to the pastor parish relations, staff parish relations, and though challenging, did prove to be a blessing in the end game. As far as future, I see this church being a catalyst in the community for outreach ministries and music, in bringing people in to use the facilities for sports, for ministry, and other educational opportunities. Thank you.
My name is Susie Tom, and I've been a member here since 1973. And that, like Sandy's experience, it's been a real blessing to me. I've been involved in the church office staff, first as a secretary and then as a church administrator. And it kind of gives you a bird's eye view of a lot of different areas within the church as you sit at your desk and see people coming and going and seeing programs and ministries unfold. And that was a blessing for me. It came at a very needed time, and I felt my family was well taken care of in this church. All 3 of my children were raised here, and they experienced excellent Sunday school teaching. And I hadn't been in church for a long time after I graduated from college in 1964, and so I was searching for to know more about God and Christ. And when I moved here in '73, the pastor was Reverend Bob Braden, and he and his wife Julie put me in touch with a couple of the women's groups here. There was the Prayer Study Action Group, and eventually there was a group called the Friendship Circle, which included a number of younger mothers and their children. And so I made new friends. There was an influx of some younger families at that time. And it was an excellent experience for studying together and fellowshipping together and finding good friends and support in those groups. Montgomery sticks in my mind as a very welcoming church all the years that I've been here. And like Sandy, there was one person that sort of provided the introduction to the fellowship for me back in '73, and that was Malloy Moxley. And so he just emanated the warmth and the welcome. And I ended up going to his Sunday school class for a number of years. And let's see. Maybe I'll pass it to somebody else, and they can carry it.
I'm Bill Tom, and I began coming to Montgomery in 1989. My wife had passed away the year before, and I happened to meet the church administrator that was here at that time, and I felt that I was drawn here not only by her, but because there was an atmosphere within the church that I felt was different from what I had experienced elsewhere. I remember probably the first time I attended the adult Sunday school class here, and it could have been Malloy's class, I'm not positive. But I know that there were a number of individuals in that class that thought quite different from one another. And I can't remember the scripture lesson that we were studying, but what struck me most was that people were raising questions from different perspectives on the scripture itself. And I realized there wasn't just one way to look at it. And they were open enough to ask questions and to give their opinions about this particular scripture that we were looking at, that opened my mind as to being able to think about these things a little bit more than what I had experienced in other church settings and other Sunday school classes. Some of the debate was often a little heated between some of the individuals, but at the end of the class, everybody still liked one another and were able to slap each other on the back and exchange jokes and this kind of stuff, which was pretty nice. The atmosphere today seems to be you've got to be very careful what you say because you might offend somebody, or somebody will take it the wrong way. And it seems a little more difficult to be open about some of the different ideas that you have from somebody else. I've been, when I first started, I became interested in the missions area. And Helen Mihalis was part of the missions team at that point in time and very involved in overseas missions in particular. And I joined her group and have been a part of missions since then. And I really appreciate the way this church has responded and been very generous in any time that there's been an appeal for foreign, domestic, local type of missions. This church has always come forward in ways that you would never expect. So I appreciate that. I really am overwhelmed sometimes by the generosity that the people have here. And Susie and I were married in the fellowship hall, actually. So it's a good memory here for my kids also. They were raised and from this church. I also thought it was interesting that it seems Montgomery is, I think Pastor John just last week mentioned that Montgomery seems to be an incubator for certain things. There have been a lot of people that have come through Montgomery that have gone on to things that have been tremendous for the kingdom of God. I think I know of at least 4 individuals that have become pastors that I've known since the short time that I've been here. And there are probably more that I don't know about. But it seems that people come here, that they experience things, they learn things, and they're ready to move on and develop their own path and their own journey in the Lord.
I don't know what to say. It has been such a joy to be a part of Montgomery Church. I moved here in...
Who are you?
Oh, I'm Mary Frances Roberts. I moved here in 1970. We came into the community from a large church in Long Island, New York, and we attended all of the other churches around. But we kind of liked Montgomery. Montgomery at that time met at the corner of 27 and 80. The first sermon we heard was given by Reverend Volk, because our pastor, Bob Braden, was on vacation at that time. We sat in the pews, we listened to the choir. Joyce Rhodes was playing the organ. The windows were open, and a bird flew in the window. And my children were just fascinated. We all had a family meeting, so shortly after that, and we said, which church do you all want to go to? With one voice, the children said, we want to go to the church with the bird. So a bird brought us to church. I met Reverend Braden, and he wanted to know what ministries I was involved in New York. And unfortunately, I told him. And within about a month, I was working as head of evangelism, head of missions. I was directing a cherub choir, and I don't know how many other things I was doing. I was totally fascinated by this area. What a different group of people. They were from everywhere. There were farmers. There were outstanding merchants and craftsmen. There were people who worked at the Pentagon. There were doctors. There were lawyers. There were so many teachers. It was just a wonderful group of people, and everyone got along beautifully together. And they came from all sorts of churches. I don't know how many congregations were represented in this group. And we all just thoroughly enjoyed everything we did. One night I drove by the church, and there was a building over across from our sanctuary then, and there was a bonfire. There were many fires, as a matter of fact. There were huge pots sitting over these fires, and men were standing, and they were stirring things. And I thought, oh my word, what is going on? I have never seen apple butter being produced. That was such a happy memory. And the dinners that were had, all of them to raise money for something. We sold cakes, we sold pies, we had rummage sales, we did so many things. And we supported so many missions and so many areas of need in our community. It was very interesting back then. And as I grew at that time in my faith walk, I had no idea how far I would go. I had the privilege of learning so many things. The Sunday school classes that I went to, and the Sunday school classes I taught. I worked with Bible school. I worked with Sunday school. I was active in the Children's Center. I was one of the first people as who was hired. I was the low person on the totem pole. I did whatever needed to be done, from scrubbing things and cleaning things to helping the 3-year-olds, doing lunch bunch, and all of the little things that make such a wonderful ministry possible. I was on the board of directors of the Damascus Ecumenical Laymen's Association at that time, and so I worked with a lot of people in all the churches. I knew all the ministers, and we knew all the needs, and we started so many things in the community. We had a mission to the prisons. We sponsored a family of displaced persons from Vietnam, I think. We just did what needed to be done. And we used to go to the Montgomery County Fair. We had a huge fair booth there each year, and what fun. The whole church would meet. We would do sandwiches, barbecue, fish, I don't know what all we did. And between times we would go and look at pigs and tractors, and oh, what fun. The children loved it, and the adults had fun too. It's hard to put everything together in just one statement. It was a lifetime experience. I raised 4 children in the church. I have buried my husband in the church cemetery. I feel that I'm such a part of Montgomery, and that Montgomery is kind of a part of me. And I see greater things on the horizon for Montgomery. God has a special love for this church, and I don't know what it is right now, but all I can say is that I'm looking forward to see what it will develop in the future.
I didn't get to add this, but in my growing in my faith in this church, I've never felt so encouraged, and this church has been, well, it's my church family. I call them my church family because I just feel God is here. I feel God moving in this church, and I have felt very encouraged as I've grown in my faith. One other great memory, of course, is when I met my husband and I invited him to this church. He came and he stayed, and we got married in the chapel in this church. And then after the wedding in the chapel, Helen Mihalis, Kate Warfield, and Barbara Massey, they took over, and they made a beautiful reception breakfast for us in the fellowship hall, because we had already moved into the sanctuary, our new sanctuary. So, or we had been in this sanctuary for a while. But that's another extra special memory of mine, that John and I were married here too. So, thank you.
Just one other thing. When Joyce handed me a little note saying that we would be talking about some of our memories, right away Psalm 100 came to my mind, and I'd just like to read it in my closing remarks. Shout joyfully to the Lord, all the earth. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come before him with joyful singing. Know that the Lord himself is God. It is he who has made us, and not we ourselves. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture. Enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him, bless his name, for the Lord is good. His loving kindness is everlasting, and his faithfulness to all generations.
I want to thank each of you for sharing. And it just warms my heart to hear your memories and to hear your vision for the future. And God has blessed us over and over and over. He's always with us, and I'm so grateful. So grateful for you folks. So grateful for my Savior, who's there every day with us. And I just feel like the next 175 years are just going to be wonderful, awesome, because God is awesome. So thank you, folks, for sharing. You did a beautiful job, and you'll be on the video that runs on Sunday afternoon during the picnic. You'll be back there, and it'll run continuously all afternoon. So if you want to see yourselves, you'll be there. So let's end with prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we just come to you with such grateful hearts for how you've surrounded us with your love, your forgiveness, your guidance, and we just praise you for sacrificing your Son, that we have that promise of eternal life with you and with our loved ones. So Lord, guide this church, guide each one of us, that our lives just shine for you and will bring others to you, Lord. Thank you. Thank you. We love you. We praise you. And we are so grateful. Thank you. Amen.